Okay, so the Nothing Phone 4a Pro versus the iQOO 15R. One prioritizes design and cameras, while the other is all about performance and battery life. Now the iQOO 15R starts at 44,999 for the 256GB storage variant. The Nothing Phone 4a Pro starts at 39,999 for the 128GB storage model. But 128GB just doesn't cut it anymore. The 8 plus 256GB variant for the 4a Pro, which is the one you should be getting, costs about 42,999. So which one of these should you get? That's exactly what we're breaking down in this video, and if you like comparisons like these, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's start with how they look and feel. Both go with flat frames and flat panels, but the way they approach design is very different. The Nothing Phone 4a Pro makes a big shift this time, ditching the transparent glass back for a full aluminium body that feels more premium to hold than any other older Nothing phone. The iQOO 15R gets a metal frame and glass back in Triumph Silver. Compact, solid and premium. Both are slim, 4a Pro at 7.9mm and our iQOO 15R at 8.1mm. Both also feel solid in the hand, with the iQOO 15R weighing 206 grams versus the 4a Pro's 210 grams. Where things get interesting is the back panel. The iQOO 15R has a racing flag inspired checker design that looks slick, but next to the 4a Pros, it's pretty basic. Nothing's back still has that wild cyberpunkish aesthetic thanks to that giant iPhone-inspired camera island with that massive Glyph matrix, similar to what debuted on last year's Nothing Phone 3. Very quirky, very functional, and very nothing. Durability is the mixed bag. We get IP68 and IP69 on the 15R against the 4a Pro's IP65. But the 15R gets short sensation alpha glass, while the 4a Pro gets Gorilla Glass 7i, which generally has a stronger track record for durability and scratch resistance. Now, both have NFC, but only the 15R gets an IR blaster. Neither of them supports eSIMs, but Nothing has specifically disabled it for India. The iQOO also wins on Wi-Fi, with Wi-Fi 7 versus the 4a Pro's Wi-Fi 6. The displays are very similar on both, except for the size. The Phone 4a Pro gets a 6.83-inch flexible AMOLED panel, while the 15R is more compact at 6.59 inches. Otherwise, both are 1.5K panels with 144Hz refresh rates and show over a billion colors. Peak HDR brightness is 5000 nits on both, but for outdoor use, the 15R hits 1800 nits in HBM mode versus the 4a Pro's 1600 nits. Both screens are genuinely great for content consumption. Colors are vibrant, blacks are deep, and both panels punch well above their price point. Here's something interesting though. The iQOO 15R gets Netflix's HDR10 and 10 Plus certifications, while the Nothing Phone 4a Pro, despite supporting HDR content, doesn't get those certifications. Still, OTT content looks great on the 4a Pro, and in real life, it is really difficult to tell them apart. Both also get in-display fingerprint scanners, optical on the Nothing and ultrasonic on the iQOO, which obviously is the better of the two. For audio, both have dual stereo speakers and get pretty loud, but I prefer the 4a Pro. It just sounds a little better overall. Cameras is where the Phone 4a Pro makes its strongest argument. The 4a Pro runs a triple rear setup, a 50 megapixel main with OIS, a 50 megapixel 3.5 periscope telephoto, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide. The iQOO 15R gets a dual camera setup, a 50 megapixel sensor with OIS and an 8 megapixel ultra wide. No telephoto here. The main cameras on both are quite capable. Solid details, good colors, and decent dynamic range. Nothing's processing leans natural, while the iQOO runs a bit warmer. At 2x, you see more of the same, though the Nothing does show a noticeable tone shift at times. Ultra wide on both is fine, nothing magical, although Nothing tends to underexpose occasionally. In low light, the iQOO artificially boosts colors and contrast, which can look oversaturated. Nothing, on the other hand, keeps things truer to life, which can occasionally look a little dull. The 4a Pro wins the zoom round, no contest here. The iQOO crops into its 50 megapixel main sensor, possible up to 3.5x, but beyond that, the Nothing walks all over it. Max zoom 20x versus 140x, not exactly usable results on either phones, but they're there if you need it. Same story with portraits. Edge detection is solid on both, but that dedicated telephoto lens just gives you better results. No amount of digital processing can beat physics. Selfies are a draw. Both get 32 megapixel sensors that do a fine job, although I lean towards the Nothing. For video, both support 4K, but the iQOO does go up to 4K 60fps. For some bizarre reason, the 4a Pro is capped at 30fps. Still, for colors, stabilization and dynamic range, I prefer the Nothing. Now, performance is where the iQOO 15R just takes over. The iQOO 15R gets the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, flagship tier silicon. while the Nothing Phone 4a Pro gets the Snapdragon 7 Gen 4. Capable chip, sure, but against the 8 Gen 5, not even close. Then you've got the RAM and storage situation. The 15R is on LPDDR5X Ultra RAM with UFS 4.1 storage. The 4a Pro gets regular LPDDR5X and UFS 3.1. Older, slower, and you do feel it in the upload times or when using the camera. And the benchmarks make that clear. The 15R's Antutu score is almost double that of the Phone 4a Pro. And so are the Geekbench scores. And again, similar results in 3D Mark. In gaming though, both phones genuinely surprised me. The iQOO 15R with its Q2 gaming chip keeping thermals in check was hitting 143 to 144 FPS in BGMI consistently, even through 45-minute sessions. The 4a Pro gets a solid 118-119 FPS and no heating issues. That's impressive for a Snapdragon 7 Gen 4 device. But for raw performance, the iQOO 15R wins, and it's not even close. Software is very interesting because both the phones are running on Android 16, but with very different UIs. OS 4.1 is clean, fast, and genuinely fun to use. That signature dot matrix aesthetic, monochrome icons, and minimalist design language that Nothing fans love is all here. Yes, there are two pre-installed apps, Facebook and Instagram, but both uninstall in seconds, so hardly a deal breaker. OriginOS 6 on the iQOO 15R is a much heavier skin with considerably more features and more bloatware. The UI is busier but very smooth to navigate. Both give you loads of customization options, but in very different ways. Nothing OS leans hard into widgets. You can download community-made ones from Nothing Playground and they genuinely change how you interact with the phone. Plus, you have the Glyph matrix showing live updates from a number of apps and many other notifications. Essential Space also gets some useful updates. Screenshots can now be sorted into essential memories and synced across Nothing devices. OriginOS 6 on the other hand brings flip cards, live photo wallpapers and Origin Island for live notifications. Plus a suite of AI tools like AI captions and AI creation. As for updates, Nothing is promising 3 years of OS updates and 6 years of security patches. iQOO does better with 4 years of OS updates and 6 years of patches. iQOO clearly wins in battery life too. The 15R packs a massive 7600 mAh cell versus the 4a Pro's 5400 mAh, and that gap shows in real world use. The 15R can genuinely go 2 days without any issues, while the 4a Pro comfortably gets you through a day. Both are fine, but the iQOO 15R gives you a serious cushion. Charging tells a similar story, 100 watt on the iQOO 15R versus 50 watt on the 4a Pro. The 15R goes from 0 to full in under 45 minutes, while the 4a Pro takes noticeably longer at around 65 minutes. Neither of them support wireless charging though, which at this price point is a bit of a shame. So, which one should you pick? Unfortunately, there's not one clear winner here. The Nothing Phone 4a Pro is the better camera phone and the more personality-driven pick. The iQOO 15R is a performance beast with a battery that just refuses to die. So your choice really comes down to what matters more, versatility with the lens or raw power under the hood. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you guys in the next one.